Chapter 180, EP 34, Unable to be Eaten, 2. In the original novel, the Devourer of Dreams swallowed Yoo Jung-hyuk, struggled against the terrible life that Yoo Jung-hyuk suffered and eventually disappeared. It was a disaster caused by overeating. However, this was the story in ways of survival. It wasn't the 136th regression that he would eat this time. Quote. The third regression, the fourth regression, the fifth regression. Do you know what will happen if humans live for thousands of years? The 36th regression, the 47th regression, the 69th regression. Have you ever thought about the pain of an endlessly repeating life? The 141st regression, the 143rd regression, the 148th regression. This is human suffering. You damn tentacles bastard. There was a feast of memories that never ended. Cracks started to spread through the engorged space. After eating what shouldn't be eaten, the crazy devourer of dreams started to riot. However, he had no place to go because this was his stomach. No one could escape from themselves. Quote. The flood of words was larger than what he could handle. The stories that weren't absorbed flew away and the flood of stories swept over the outer universe like waves. The wreckage of the damaged stomach scattered. The fourth wall is slowly opening its eyes. The fourth wall is searching for something to eat. The startled devourer of dreams stared at me. The fourth wall laughs at the devourer of dreams. Now the relationship between predator and prey had changed. Qua. The fourth wall, which was made up of many letters, started to swallow the stories of the devourer of dreams. It was purely hungry eating, without caring about gourmet food. The countless fish and other symbols of the devourer of dreams tried to flee, but it couldn't escape from the persistent wall. The stories that he had eaten for 8,000 years were crushed to powder and sucked into the wall. The patterns on the wall emitted a bright light. The voice of the unauthorized guy who read the story was shocked. More than half his thoughts had been consumed and they appeared on the wall. Surely this isn't. Oh. The great old ones. Where are all of you? At the last moment, he tried to abandon everything and run, but the fourth wall was one step faster. The wall exposed its terrible teeth and swallowed the contents of the stomach. Oh, great old, oh. There was a dazzling light and the open mouth of the wall finally closed. The fourth wall has finished eating. You have defeated an outer god. The star stream has failed to find a suitable name for your achievement. An unknown achievement will be added to your fifth story. Your status, which was about to be confirmed, will be re-evaluated. The fragments of the devourer of dreams scattered and I remained in the void of the outer universe with a few stories. The space didn't collapse even though the devourer of dreams was dead. I still hadn't returned to my original world. The gods of the outer universe are greatly confused after hearing of the death of devourer of dreams. The outer gods are trying to figure out what happened in his scenario. Some great old beings are watching you. A feeling of nausea rose inside me. Perhaps it was because my spirit had been eaten but I felt weakened. Heek, queek. It was a horrible experience. Yoo Jung-hyuk had done this in the 136th regression. Queek. After vomiting a few times, I searched through the fragments of the story for my mother. Fortunately, the image formed by Devourer of Dreams was preserved. She stood there with closed eyes. Was she still alive? I didn't know. I tested my mother's pulse and shook her shoulders. Please wake up. First, I had to take my mother out of here. I looked around. Why wasn't this space broken? In the 136th regression, there was the scene where Yoo Jung-hyuk killed the Devourer of Dreams. This space collapsed and he returned to the original world. The outer universe was operated with the power of the outer god. Once the outer god died, it should be broken. This time, the outer god died but his space was still maintained. Why? The fourth wall is looking at you. Don't tell me. The fourth wall shakes its head with regret. The fourth wall is still hungry. It ate so many stories yet it was still hungry. The fourth wall has started to suck the remaining remnants. It was as if a vacuum cleaner was turned on as the fourth wall opened its mouth and started to suck in the rest of the surroundings. The remaining stories, the dust and... Wait. Wait. Even my mother who was in my arms. I flew towards the wall. Hey! Don't eat that. Before I could reach the wall, my mother was sucked into it. The mouth devoured my mother's head, arms and torso. Shit. I told you not to eat that. The fourth wall is laughing with satisfaction. The fourth wall is licking its lips as it looks at you. I had to ask something. There was something I hadn't heard yet. Yet this damn wall had swallowed my mother. What happened after being swallowed by the wall? I didn't know. One thing was for certain, none of the beings eaten by the wall had returned. The theater dungeon's master, the reincarnator Nirvana and even the devourer of dreams. Was there any possibility of my mother surviving when even an outer god couldn't survive? Spit her out. I started punching the fourth wall. The wall licked its lips towards me but showed no signs of eating me. The surface of the wall faintly shook at my punch. Punch and punch again. I knew it was foolish but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. How much did I hit the wall? Then a message appeared on the wall. First, I remember when I gave that child a name. I stared blankly at the sentence. I realized what it meant after a short time. He wanted to use Doke, alone, and I wanted Doke, reader. Maybe it was from here that he and I became different. I groaned and hit the wall. I never wanted to hear the story this way. I wanted him to be a reader rather than a lonely person. As long as they read something, humans won't be lonely. I probably wanted to believe this. As soon as my punches stopped, countless sentences appeared on the wall. I couldn't believe how many sentences there were in a person's lifetime. I should stay at home. Huh? Why should I live like this? How long do I have to live while supporting you and that child? Suk-young, you have to endure it. Think of Dokja. The man will only do it for a moment. Mother, I think you should pay attention to Dokja. I cursed and started beating on the wall again. There were some things I remembered but some things I didn't. Still, the feelings of those days were vivid. It was hard. At the time, I was so tired that I couldn't think of anything else. When I thought about it, it was just as hard for my child. My mother had suffered in those days. Violence against a woman, a mother and a person, it should never be done. Dokja. Get in here. Understood? Don't come out until mother says you can. The merciless words continuously appeared and I once again suffered my childhood from another point of view. It sounded like a completely strange story, despite it being something I had experienced personally. This was what happened. It was so painful. It was miserable. By the way, why had I forgotten all of this? Did I just want to forget? Meanwhile, the wall continued to speak. I should have left him. No matter what other people said, I should have taken that child and gone to a distant place. She should have left in the end. Why didn't I? It was a record filled with remorse and regret. This was my mother, who was silent in reality. Now she was opening her mouth when it was a novel. It happened late in the evening. Finally, the story began. Bring more alcohol. My father's voice shouted to bring more alcohol. He pushed my mother and hit her stomach. My father was threatening. Why you? Put down the knife and let's talk. Slowly, the memories were coming back. The little boy hiding in the room stuck out his head. Chapter 181, EP 34, Unable to be Eaten, 3. I could see the attributes window. I finally understood a few things that didn't make sense. The reason I hadn't been able to see my attributes window was due to fourth wall. The fourth wall protected me from other beings, but at the same time, it was a skill that isolated me from myself. Checking the attributes window. The system configuration is unstable. Some skill names and levels are limited. Then, for the first time, I saw my attributes window. Personal information. Name, Kim Dokja. Age, 28 years old. Sponsor, none. Modifier, the ugliest king, tentative. Exclusive attributes, 8 lives, hero, scenario. Before the attributes window was fully revealed, the screen crashed and sudden messages emerged. Some constellations are approaching your mental barrier. At this moment, I wanted to say oops. Maybe the constellations had been looking for this opportunity, for the day that my information was revealed to the world. Constellations of the nebula Vedas are approaching you. Constellations of the nebula Olympus are approaching you. Constellations of the nebula Papyrus are approaching you. The constellations who sought to improve my existence started to forcibly open my mind. At this moment, the exclusive skill, fourth wall, is reactivated independently of your will. Exclusive skills, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint LV, Bookmark LV, Character List LV, Fourth Wall LV, LV. Overall evaluation, U. A lot of the information was hidden by. As numerous bricks piled up, strong sparks that concealed my information appeared. The constellation founder of humanity is groaning. The constellation poked out his eyes is covering his eyes and stepping back. The constellation Scorpion Goddess steps back while protecting her tail. Some of the constellations approaching you are struck and have retreated. The countless letters rotated reliably. The fierce sparks of the fourth wall were protecting me from the constellations. The guy who was fighting me a while ago was now emitting a fierce aura towards the constellations. The fourth wall is baring its teeth towards the star stream. I stared at the fourth wall. The last thing I heard was a message from a well-known constellation. The constellation, Secretive Plotter, is smiling at you. The message was distinctively different from the other constellations. Surely he didn't see my information in such a short period of time? Even if he did see it, he wouldn't have been able to check everything. I couldn't confirm all the information despite opening the attributes window. The sparks calmed down and the wall turned towards me again. The fourth wall is angry with you. I stared at the wall. For a long time, I thought this wall was the boundary between the novel and reality. The wall allowed me to adapt to the new world and show unusual judgment in terrible situations. However, once I asked about the actual identity of the wall, I couldn't come to a conclusion. The only thing I could be certain of was that this wall had protected me for a long time. There were a few crises, but I overcame them due to the presence of this wall. It was thanks to this wall that I could arrive here. I brought my hands towards the letters making up the wall. I'm sorry. The fourth wall is shaking. The strange texture of the letters wrapped around my fingers. The fourth wall felt like this. The letters of the wall clung to my hands like Dr. Fish, Red Gara. They seemed to be licking and biting me. It was a feeling that couldn't be clearly shared. There was no analogy for it. The fourth wall was like a wet puppy, an abandoned child, a teenager who didn't listen, etc. The fourth wall. The fourth wall was like me. Then a sentence appeared on the wall. Kim Dokja is an I diet. The sentence seemed to have been written by a child just learning Hangul. It wasn't a story related to me or the world. It was the words of the fourth wall. I smiled at the wall. $##$#$. The fourth wall wrote unrecognized characters, as if it was confused for a moment. Then after a while, it wrote a sentence again. Kim Dokja thought, the fourth wall is an existence with its own will as well. It was starting again. Then were the words written in brackets from the fourth wall? However, the fourth wall's tone is too static compared to that. Then who wrote those words? If this really is a wall, there is something else in the wall. Stop reading other people's thoughts. The fourth wall is turning its head away. The fourth wall is telling you not to forcibly turn it off again. I kept talking while touching the fourth wall. I know. Instead, I have a request. The fourth wall is looking at you. I took a brief breath before saying, "Give me back my mother." The wall shook briefly, as if to judge if my words were true or not. Then a sentence appeared on the wall. Kim Dokja hates his mother. That's right. Kim Dokja knows what happened with his mother. He knows what his mother has been through, the life she lived and what she was hiding. Just because he knows doesn't mean he understands everything. Yes. Because of this, Kim Dokja still hates his mother. This is what human emotions are like. There is no magic that will heal all wounds just because someone else has a deep wound as well. You have great insight. I agree. Thus, Kim Dokja can't understand it himself. Why is he trying to save his mother? I can't explain. Not everything can be expressed in sentences. I quietly looked at the wall and said, "I don't have much energy left. Please help me. I'm asking you." The fourth wall was silent for a long time before displaying the following sentence. Kim Dokja. Could an existence who already entered the wall come out again? I didn't know if it was possible or not. Still, I had to try. Then the wall started to move. Something was vomited out from the wall. There were numerous letters. The letters gathered to become words and the words came together to become sentences. The sentences gathered into paragraphs and the paragraphs gathered again to become a story. The story soon formed a person. I embraced my mother who was lying in the letters. Then I told the fourth wall, "Thank you." The fourth wall shook and started to disperse. Sleepy. Little by little, the surrounding space was broken. The constellation, secretive plotter, is snapping at the great old ones spying on you. The darkness of the outer universe was clearing away. Time and space were broken and the surrounding scenery changed to the second floor of Dark Castle. Then the subsequent messages appeared. Your Dark Castle ranking has changed. Your current Dark Castle ranking is second place. You have met the hidden goal of the main scenario. You are eligible to participate in the last scenario of Dark Castle. 2 days had passed since the battle on the plains. All mortals lost their fighting spirit in the face of a god. The forces of the Wanderers and the forces of Paradise. In a sense, the powerful despair brought peace to all of them. The commanders of the Wanderers and the commanders of Paradise settled the dead and cleared up the situation. The unnecessary disturbance disappeared and the second floor of Dark Castle was slowly gaining stability. The rankers were slowly selected to go up to the next floor and people agreed to entrust them with the future of Dark Castle. Most rankers were gathered in front of a small coffin. It is his job to die all the time. Kim Dokja died as soon as he came back from defeating the outer gods. He fought against such a mighty being that his companions thought it was natural. Jung Hee-won said, "Will he be alive again tomorrow?" Last time it also took 3 days. The group had adjusted to Kim Dokja dying and weren't as shocked. Yusanga bit her lips and wondered. By the way, did we need to put him in a coffin? Even the dead should be put in a bed. Jung Hee-won made an excuse. The party members stared at Kim Dokja's coffin with different meanings. Lee Hyun-sung was watching with a reverent gaze, Shin Yu-sung looked guilty and Yusanga was confused. Then. By the way, Master. I thought you would go to find hidden pieces. At Lee Jai-hai's words, the party members all looked from the coffin towards a certain place. Yu Junghyuk frowned at the gazes and replied, now the only hidden pieces in Dark Castle are worthless. Then the reason why you came here. I need Kim Dokja to move to the next floor. Aren't the two of you very close these days? A few days ago, I saw. Yu Junghyuk's impression became grim and the cowardly Lee Jae-hai closed her mouth. Jung Hee-won tapped Lee Jae-hai and rebuked her. Stop teasing Junghyuk SSI. Don't disturb the two of them. Oh, fine. In addition, you know the reason why he came here without asking. It is the same for everyone. At these words, the faces of the party members became solemn. They looked down at Kim Dokja's coffin. Jung Hee-won opened her mouth again. He isn't afraid of death because he will live again. Just because he had multiple lives didn't mean he should keep sacrificing them for others. Shin Yusung touched the surface of the coffin. If it wasn't for Dokja Ajusi, we would have died by now. No one doubted it. Lee Hyunsung, Jung Hee-won, Lee Gil-young and Lee Jae-hai as well. All of them had been saved by Kim Dokja. Lee Jae-hai sighed. I'm not saying this to be cheesy but, if I had 2 lives, would probably give one to Ajusi. I'm afraid he won't receive it because you only have 6 points in affection. This kid, in any case, aren't we all the same when it comes to the garter belt? The group smiled as they watched Lee Jae-hai and Lee Gil-young clashing. It was an unbelievable sight when people were crying with frustration at the bloody battlefield 2 days ago. Yu Junghyuk watched them from a distance. Kim Dokja appeared and his plans changed a lot. The easy scenarios became difficult and the simple stories became complicated. Those who were supposed to die survived. Yu Junghyuk looked down at his hands. Perhaps among those who were supposed to die, Yu Junghyuk himself would be included. Yu Junghyuk thought it was very strange. This landscape could be made by a person who wasn't a regressor. This regression might be better than any other round of life that he had lived. It was terribly complicated in his mind. By the way, isn't that fate over now? Dokja Ajusi died. Lee Jae-hai asked and some companions replied. That's right. That reminds me. Since he was destined to die because of a loved one, isn't the fate fulfilled? He died because of his mother. Yes. Why didn't I think of his mother? The voices were boisterous. Yu Sanga watched Yu Junghyuk standing in the distance with a complicated face. Yu Junghyuk also had a thought as he faced the eyes. The fate isn't over. There was the variable called Cheok Jungyeong but the nebulae weren't that simple. The nebulae knew about Kim Dokja's resurrection. Thus, the fate could never end this way. In addition, the nebulae were angry with Kim Dokja and were likely to maliciously engage in realizing the fate. Above all, the big hurdle that was the next scenario would soon arrive. Thus, Yu Junghyuk needed to choose. He silently stared up at the sky. It was like he was looking for something there. After a while, his gaze was returned. The constellation is looking at his incarnation. The constellation? It was the 3rd regression but Yu Junghyuk still didn't know who his sponsor was. It was the source of the regression and the one who made Yu Junghyuk suffer a terrible tragedy. Yu Junghyuk took a breath and opened his mouth. Sponsor. I have to ask you something.